So it's Marlon Brando, Elizabeth Taylor, Michael Jackson, and me. And you know what we had for dinner? Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Right out of the bucket.
Right out of the bucket.
But wasn't Marlon Brando talking a lot of the time about how great KFC was?
He did. He loved KFC.
Yeah.
I like KFC.
This is the most fantastic chicken.
Welcome to Discograffiti, the podcast that gives Gen X music maniacs a chance to smell like teen spirit again by connecting with a brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebro, and with 3 new episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on John Landis in part 4 of our 6-volume series, The John Landis Tapes. On today's show, we'll be taking in a great stretch of John's wildly successful run as a filmmaker in the 1980s, 83 to 88 specifically, during which he directed the following films: Trading Places, The Thriller Video, Into the Night, Spies Like Us, Three Amigos, and Coming to America. Not bad. We're also featuring special co-host Joe Kennedy, as well as the man himself, my friend John Landis. Over the course of the program today, John talks to Discograffiti about the making of the Thriller video, giving us a blow-by-blow account of its genesis and what it was like to work with Michael Jackson, plus the time Prince pitched John to direct Purple Rain, and tons of sweet tales about his decades-long friendship with David Bowie. Coming up, we've got an endlessly interesting 9-hour multi-parter interview with the great David Pajo, plus interviews with Vashti Bunyan, Lorraine, The Association, and Anthony Fantano. So don't miss out. Open up your listening app right now and click follow. I want to say before we start that something insane happened to me a few days before the recording of this intro. I experienced a complication after what was really a routine surgery and literally wound up bleeding out as my blood pressure dropped to 86/50 and my hemoglobin plummeted to 5.8 when 5.0 is literally low enough to die. I laid on that table in the hospital just bleeding out and telling the nurse who was attempting to stop the geyser all about that day's Patreon episode that had gone up, which was about the chimps. And I was explaining to this poor, confused woman how fucking awesome it was that the Beatles had the monkeys, and that the monkeys had their own monkeys, and that they were called the chimps. Keep in mind, this is directly preceding a double blood transfusion. I love Discograffiti. The show is not only in my blood, it is my blood. Music is literally my life force. And it's really, really good to still be here. Special thanks to Mom, Dad, Jen, and Mason for putting up with all this bullshit. And away we go then, with John Landis.
American Werewolf, objectively the best movie you've ever done. Then we go to 1983, Trading Places. Let's just call this Eddie Murphy Part 1. Okay, because there's 3 parts to this series. Eddie Murphy Part 1, dealing with him as a fresh talent. Right.
No, I have no complaints. He was wonderful.
Pliable, friendly.
Not pliable, gifted. And
right.
He was wonderful.
The whole experience was wonderful.
The whole experience was good.
Okay.
He's great in it. I mean, he's, he's such a natural comic.
Plus, the introduction of the mega talent, Jim Belushi, in Trading Places. Any comments about working with Jim Belushi?
He was great too. He was fun. He's in Trading Places. That was really a favor to John, who, it's a long story, but that's his first film, and he got in the Union.
Yeah, more gorillas. We got to talk about your primate obsession, but a little bit later.
Listen, the true definition of a good movie, there's a gorilla suit in it.
All right, so now Michael Jackson is, at this point, a huge fan of American Werewolf, and he approaches you because he wants to do a video. Is that correct? He called you and
the Thriller album had come out and was already the #1 best-selling album of all time and had been #1 for over a year. and they had made Billie Jean and Beat It. It was Bob Giraldi and, oh gosh, Julian Temple. And both of those were very influential and important videos. Michael wanted to do another video because he wanted it to go back to #1. It was like #3 after a year. And it was already the best-selling album of all time. CBS Records had no interest in doing a video. They thought, make another album, you know, this one's done. And he wanted to. He really wanted to. He thought, he wanted to do another video. And so he saw An American Werewolf in London. I forgot who, I think one of his brothers showed it to him on the bus. And he doesn't like horror films. He's like, yeah, he gets very, and but he liked that. And he was obviously fascinated with the Metamorphosis, with Rick Baker's work. And I was in London at the time, and he called me up. I got a call at like 3 in the morning. And he said, you know, this is Michael Jackson. And I said, okay, thanks, and hung up. And he called back. And I'm thinking, Michael Jackson from the Jackson 5? You know, I'm like, what? Anyway, and he tells me he's got a song, and he wants me to do a video. And I said, well, when I come back, I'm coming back to Los Angeles in 2 weeks. I'll see you. I'll come. Okay. He called me like 12 times. I'm coming, I promise. So I went over. He was still living at his parents in Encino, the house on Havenhurst, and so right behind Gelson's. So I went over to see him, and I said, well, what are you interested in? What he wanted was to change into a monster on camera. And so I said, well, Rick Baker should be in this conversation. And I called Rick, and so we went over to see him again, this time with the book of monsters. And he's going, oh. He didn't like
and by the way, this is the height of practical effects in films. I mean, you got American Werewolf in London, The Thing, Rick Baker's on fire. You have other people coming up.
Oh, Rob Bottin. There are a lot of really gifted.
Some really good stuff happening.
In any case, so that's what he wants. So I was not interested in doing a rock video because they were commercials for records. I'm thinking, you can't afford me. You know, it was like,
yeah, it's kind of low art.
Well, it wasn't a low art. I don't think of commercials as a low art. I just think of it as a job of work. You know,
right,
it's not.
Right.
And then I thought, wait a minute, this guy is the #1 celebrity in the world, and I thought I could use the power of his celebrity. I was wrong, by the way, but to bring back the theatrical short. Because I remember when you'd go to the movie and there'd be either a cartoon or a Three Stooges or something, you know. And I love shorts. And I thought, I mean, what MTV really did do is there was some great animation done, how many ways can you shoot a guy playing a guitar or beating a drum? I said, let's do a 2-reeler. He goes, what's that? I said, like 15 minutes. So it's like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. That's 7, And he got very excited by the idea of making a little mini movie, he called it. So I said, okay. So I go home and I write it. And, well, first we talked about the monster, and we decided he wanted to turn into a 4-footed monster, and I said, Mike, it's too difficult to dance. We didn't know.
Obviously, you've never seen him dance.
But
that would be very funny if he's a werewolf.
But he became also. I wanted him. Rick's first design was wonderful, but really scary. And I said, he's got to be attractive. And Rick said, well, I could make him like a cat monster, like Michael Landon, like a cat monster. So he did that design, which I loved, and I knew would look good with that Letterman's jacket. So I said, okay. And he loved it. Michael loved everything. And then we went to Walter Yetnikoff, and Michael talks to him, and we budgeted, because it'd have to be union, and stuff. So the budget was close to $500,000. And at that time, what was spent on videos was between $35,000 and $50,000. Was huge. And I'll never get Michael talks to Walter Yetnikoff. It's a very polite conversation, and tells him all this stuff. And then he says, John, Walter wants to talk to you. And I don't know Walter yet. I go, hello? Well, he screamed at me, you motherfucker, who do you think you are? I'm going to rip your cock off. I mean, Jesus, Walter Yetnikoff screaming at me, this flood of obscenities, and says, You tell Michael Jackson that his record, that album is over, and I want his next fucking record, and to get in the studio and call Quincy and Bruce and give me another goddamn record, because this one's dead and we're not spending a penny on another fucking video. So I go, he's screaming at me
this guy's
like a cartoon.
Never happy.
And I say,
Thriller wasn't enough.
Seriously.
I say to Michael, he said, no, Michael. And Michael goes, what? Takes the phone. Are you serious? What? Okay, I'm talking to my lawyer, and I'm talking to my thing, and yada, yada. Goodbye. Hangs up. Well, I'll pay for it, he said. I said, Michael, that's too much money for you to pay for. He said, I can afford it. And I said, maybe, but the truth is, first rule of show business, learned by me, personally, don't spend your own money.
It's like, but I just
learned that one as
but
well.
I just bought $300,000 worth of llamas.
Yeah. Well, this is before that, actually. Anyway, this is why he's buying big Mickey Mouse toys. The bottom line is George Folsey, who was my editor and partner at the time, he had a really interesting idea. He said, why don't we film us filming it and make the making of Thriller, and this 15 minutes with this 35 minutes, that's an hour, and sell it to television, and that's how we'll finance the video.
Fucking brilliant.
That was his idea.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
I remember that.
So we go to HBO, we go to MTV, we go to CBS, they all throw us out. However, Showtime is a new cable channel, and they say,
which bought Zombie Honeymoon, by the way.
Well, they say, well, we can't afford $500,000, but we'll give you $250,000 for the opportunity to show it free. I mean, to show it first for exclusively for 1 week. So we said, deal. Then I get a call from Bob Pittman. Now, remember, MTV said no, because we don't pay for videos. People give them to us for free. It's like that YouTube, Google kind of, our business model is theft of thing. So Bob Pittman calls me very angry and says, we made Michael Jackson. I said, no, Michael Jackson made MTV. He's your first black act. They had a policy they wouldn't play black acts.
I know, it's crazy.
It's true, Michael.
I remember Bowie talking with Mark Goodman.
Yeah, it's an embarrassing interview.
Yep. There was an interview, and Bowie was basically holding the mirror up and saying, how come you're not playing any black acts? Mark Goodman was kind of stumbling through it.
Mark Goodman's like, maybe a kid might watch it and get scared or something.
Yeah.
He said that?
It was crazy. It was a crazy interview.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Bowie's look on Bowie's face.
Well, Michael was the first black act on MTV.
I really want to know, what was it like working with Ola Ray? Okay, now seriously, I want to hear. There's one story.
So the end of that was that Bob Pittman was so angry, and he said, Showtime, who the hell are they've got less than 100,000 subscribers, and we've got 50 million subscribers.
They had Super Dave,
and I said, you're free, and he goes, all right. So now Bob Pittman still tells people that MTV gave us the money. They gave us the other $250, which meant they had the right to show it after Showtime. And it turned out he wasn't really wrong, because when they premiered it, they made a big deal out of it, but it had already been on Showtime for a week. It's just that there were only 100,000 people at Showtime. So anyway, that's what happened.
Do you think that this is the thing you're most known for, Thriller? Or is it Blues Brothers or Animal House? What do you think?
Depends where you are.
Yeah, it depends on who the person is.
Right. And where you are and how old the person is.
We need to hear the Marlon Brando story.
It's David creates these scenarios.
No, just tell us.
Michael asked me after, you want to go have dinner? Yes. So we go out to dinner, and he says, I'm going to take you to Marlon's house. And I said, Marlon who? I'm thinking
Jackson.
I'm thinking Marlon Perkins, that nature guy. So he says, Marlon Brando. Because they were actually good friends. So he takes up a Mulholland near where Warren Beatty and Jack Nicholson lived, up by Beverly Hills, and takes me to Marlon Brando's house.
Hey lads and ladies, Dave Gebrow here. I abandoned my career and moved my family 3,000 miles to be able to focus exclusively on Discograffiti. And so if you're like me and enough is just never enough, then please visit patreon.com/Discograffiti and become one of our Patreon soldiers of sound. Discograffiti is an entirely listener-supported show, and it's also intended to be a 3 times a week music deep dive experience. So do us both a favor and consider giving it a shot. Trust me, I'm working hard for the money, so hard for it, honey. There's the main show on Friday, a Monday wildcard episode, which is either a soul-bearing interview with that week's special guest, or an offshoot show like Queasy Listening and Rock Cousteau. And then on Wednesdays, there's the humdinger of them all, Discograffiti's The Private Press with Paul Major. You got nothing to lose. If you don't dig it after a month, you're refunded, no questions asked. Once again, that's patreon.com/Discograffiti.
And there's Marlon Brando in a moo-moo, and he was very nice, and he says, we're just waiting for Elizabeth. And I'm thinking, Elizabeth. And sure enough, Elizabeth Taylor comes, and he says, let's just eat in the kitchen. So it's Marlon Brando, Elizabeth Taylor, Michael Jackson, and me. And you know what we had for dinner? Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Right out of the bucket.
Right out of the bucket. And it was fine. I mean, it was just, these people, I'm just that level of...
But wasn't Marlon Brando talking a lot of the time about how great KFC was?
He did. He loved KFC.
Yeah.
I like KFC.
This is the most fantastic chicken.
It is an insane and
it's an
surrealistic
insane story because
but
these
you
people
make it bigger and bigger.
No. What I love about the story is the hugeness of the talent and celebrity and the mundanity of the situation.
But what do people do in real life?
Spices are just remarkable to me.
Oh. Listen, Marlon was very nice and very funny, and Elizabeth Taylor was very nice.
So how did you get involved with Prince for Purple Rain?
No, I didn't get involved with Prince.
Okay, so was there...
No, I got a call from Prince's representative. Would I meet Prince? And I had seen Prince. I loved his music, and I said, sure. So he comes to my office at Universal Studios, and, Prince was interesting. He was tiny and very slender and tiny and wearing some unitard thing outfit. What was funny, I mean, it was hard not to comment or laugh, which I didn't. But he was, whatever tall he was, literally 6 inches was heel and 5 inches was hair.
Yeah. He never wore like regular clothes. Apparently, he only wore like stage clothes.
Yeah, he had
even if it was like at his house at home.
Well, anyway, he came in. He was very quiet, but clearly it was obvious to me. Very strong guy, very strong opinions, and he told me about this movie. What was it for? Purple Rain.
Purple Rain.
And he played me the song, which hadn't come out yet. And I loved the song. I don't know what it meant, And he explained to me the story, and I'm thinking, what the fuck does that have to do with Purple Rain? But anyway, he was very nice, and he also wore perfume, which always kind of makes you...
That's another thing I've heard about him, is that you could smell him before...
Yeah,
he would come into the
very strong. And that was kind of odd. But he was very, very nice. And basically, I told him the truth. I said, you should direct this. You have it in your head. I mean, it's obvious. He said,
so it's your fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, come on. So he didn't, by the way. Someone else directed it.
I thought he did direct it. Maybe not.
No, he directed the next one.
He directed Under the Cherry Moon, which is
Under the Cherry Moon.
Then we move into...
So then when you say I'm involved, I wasn't involved.
No,
I had a meeting.
You met with him. Stop castigating me, for fuck's sake.
Well, you keep...
All right, 1985.
Aggrandizing shit.
1985... You directed a movie that you feel a personal connection to, right? I mean, because Into the Night, Into the Night, you kind of feel like it's your abandoned stepchild. Is that not the case?
No, I don't. I like Into the Night. It was my you know what? It was my first failure.
Right.
And that was very strange because I'd made a bunch of movies. They'd all been successful, more successful, more successful, more successful. I got my platinum records from the Blues Brothers, you know, I got all this stuff, and more successful. And then I made Thriller, which was ridiculously successful. And then
the greatest music video of all time by all accounts.
Well, yeah, by all accounts.
I made Into the Night, and it bombed. I mean, nobody went. And it was like, actually, it's one of the best reviewed pictures I ever made, because my movies usually get shit on in this country. But I
called you when Zombie Honeymoon came out, and I was crying. Do you remember that? The day it came out, there was a review in the New York Times that actually singled my direction out as capable and said it was a witty script, but there were other things that weren't perfect. I called you weeping.
What did I say?
And you yelled at me, as you often do, and said, you know, none of my pictures have ever been reviewed. You should be loving this moment.
It was, but you told me what you just said made it sound okay.
Yeah, in retrospect, but at the time, you know how that...
No, it's, you know, Laurence Olivier, and I'm paraphrasing because he said it better, but he had a famous quote about, you cannot give any credence to bad reviews. To good reviews. Because if you do, then you have to give equal credence to the bad.
Right.
But I'll tell you two review stories. One, I'm having breakfast with Donald Sutherland at the Polo Lounge, and he worshipped Pauline Kael. And he had just made Day of the Locust, and in which his character's grotesque, you know, and short hair, really looks weird. And he told them to find him right away when the new New Yorker comes. The new New Yorker comes. And he says, John, read me the review. So I open to the review of Day of the Locust. And I look at it and I go, Donald, I don't want to read this to you. Read it. No, you read it. No, you read it. I'll never forget the first line of her review was, Donald Sutherland, parenthesis, possibly the least attractive actor working today.
Oh, God. Jesus Christ.
It was so harsh and cruel.
What was his,
he
was
was
his reaction?
devastated. But, the story you'll like, because it's also the New York Times, is American Werewolf in London comes up. And Janet Maslin,
right.
who's now the book critic, but then she was a movie critic, she gave me a review. The review was nice about Jenny Agutter, nice about David and Griffin, mentioned remarkable work by Rick Baker, and then it ends up by, I'm paraphrasing, the movie almost succeeds despite the mediocre screenplay and ham-fisted direction by John Landis. So about an hour later, I get a phone call from John Belushi in New York. Hi, John. Did you read the New York Times? I did. Did you fuck her? Because when they're that nasty, you think, what the fuck? What did I do? But anyway, that movie really, I like that picture. Into the Night is
an interesting film. A couple of things I want to talk about there.
Movie.
First of all, what was your thinking in doing about 25 different cameo appearances? Was that all the cameos?
All my film, all.
But that one was super intensive.
I've got movies with many more directors than that.
So Bowie,
David wasn't a cameo.
He was in
supporting
totally
actor
in the film. This is the beginning of your relationship with David Bowie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how did he come into things? And you remained friends with him for quite some time, right?
Yeah. He was lovely. He was a wonderful guy. No, I just thought he'd be great in the part. So I contacted his agent and sent the script, and he said yes.
How often did you speak for the remainder of his life?
For a while, a lot. After he married Iman, he was in L.A. for quite a while, but then he moved back to New York, and I didn't see him as much. And then he went to London, and I think I saw him. I probably saw him twice in 10 years. 5 years, 10 years before he died.
And I remember you telling me years before he died that he was really not well. And he was kind of keeping it a secret.
Oh, he was keeping it a secret for a long time. But David did something once in New York that was very impressive to me. We were walking on Madison Avenue or something, and I said, it's amazing to me that you can just walk down the street and not be recognized because you're so distinctive. You know, his eyes were different colors.
Right.
I said, you're so distinctive. He goes, well, I'm not being David Bowie. I can beat him. You want to see something? I go, yeah. And I don't know what he did. I noticed nothing. But suddenly people are going, David Bowie, David Bowie.
That is so
walking
crazy.
up to him, Mr. Bowie, I love your records. You know,
So
I
he's
think
flipping some kind of switch.
He just started to be David Bowie. I don't know what he did, but he turned it on. Michael Jackson was someone I know used to call him the black hole, because if Michael was sitting at the table, which he often was at dinner or whatever, he wasn't there. I mean, you could put your arm through him. He was very shy, one, but two, unless he was engaged, he had no presence, nothing. But did you ever see Michael on stage live?
I've never seen him in person, no.
Did you ever see him live?
No.
This is the thing about Michael that I never saw anywhere else. I saw great performers. Michael, even at Wembley, you know, even at Dodger Stadium, wherever it was, no matter how big the venue or how far away you were, there were 30 people on stage. You only looked at him. Mm-hmm. When he turned it on stage, he was explosive. He was powerful. It was like a neutron bomb, you know, just like incredible power. And that's a live thing. It's a chemical thing. The only moments, there's sometimes on film where you can see it, like in the famous Motown special, when he does Billie Jean. You really see it because it's live and the audience is there, and you can see that. Like, he literally is projecting. It's like there's a wind machine going or something. It's like, holy shit. And that was incredible to watch him turn it on and off. And it was just his...
So Bowie was not a black hole when he turned it
off. No, Bowie
when he
was
turned
very,
it off, he still had a presence.
Oh, he was very funny and very witty, and he'd gone through so much in his life. He was wise.
He really? I mean, because he wore so many guises through his career. What is the most surprising thing about him being just a grounded, regular person?
I don't know.
Was he seemingly grounded?
I don't know if I'd call him a regular person, but in my knowledge of him, he was very smart, very sweet, and settled. He was very comfortable in his own skin. Mm-hmm. One of my best friends is a famous director named David Cronenberg. And David's a really good guy. And what David does, very much like Guillermo del Toro, there's another one. These two guys, they're totally wonderful people. And they're incredibly eloquent. I've seen both of them in front of audiences talking about their movies. In fact, David and I were teachers, this was years ago, at Sundance. Did you
also work with Jim Mangold back then?
No, Jim was one of my students at Sundance.
Yeah.
He'd talk about a frustrated guy who hated Hollywood and wasn't getting his break, and he was like, you know.
I got to tell you, I loved Heavy. Good. I thought Heavy was a special film. He doesn't make films like that anymore, though.
No, he makes big commercials.
Yeah.
In any case, my point is that David and Guillermo can discuss their own work with such eloquence, and they both consider themselves artists. Mm-hmm. And even
the way Bowie died with releasing Black Star in the
well, David was always
an artistic death.
Well, that was they were these guys, and they're all lovely guys, and I really like them, and I like giving them shit and stuff. But they really do. See, like, I could not sit with someone and discuss my work as a great artist. Because for me, it's ridiculous. I attempt stuff, and I certainly respect my craft, and I can do certain things, but
you have always been a little self-effacing.
It's not being self-effacing. I don't consider myself an artist in the same way that people like Michael Curtiz. Michael Curtiz is a Hungarian guy who came to Hollywood, and he was a workhorse director. But he directed Robin Hood, Casablanca, Yankee Doodle Dandy. I mean, you go through his credits and it's like, holy shit, this guy directed in every genre, classics, musicals, westerns, romance picture, whatever. I mean, and it's like, holy shit.
And so he never considered himself.
Well, I don't know I don't know. He was a famous.
My outlook on it is that if somebody is not a painter or a sculptor and they call themselves an artist, they're pretentious. That's always
I
been my
disagree
view.
with that.
That's always been my view. It feels.
But you know what pretentious?
It's like people who call themselves spiritual.
You know what? Well, that's different. When you call someone pretentious, it just means they they failed at what they were aspiring to.
Right.
They had pretensions that they were more talented than they are.
Right.
It's a very not nice thing to say about people, but people use it in a way that's odd, because every movie you ever see that you're bored shitless by is pretentious.
Right.
But that doesn't mean the filmmaker's pretentious. This is, okay, I'll tell you something about film. First of all, you shouldn't say film. You should say motion picture, because it's not film anymore, but it's still a motion picture, and it's the same process. It's montage. So there's some things about movies that people do not get. For instance, here's one. A motion picture is made by individual shots. Each individual setup or shot requires the skills. First of all, everyone is original, whether it's a television show or a rock video, or no matter what the fuck it is. Even those goddamn 4-camera shows. Every setup is unique and original and from scratch, which means the people required to get you that piece, what Bogdanovich called piece of time, but that piece you need are lighting people, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, seamstresses, drivers. It's unbelievable. Makeup artists, hair people, wardrobe people, costume designers, prop people. It's unbelievable how many skills and how many crafts are involved in one stupid setup. Hairdressers. And what's so interesting about that is that the motion picture, television or movies, is the last handcrafted product for mass consumption, because every piece requires all these crafts guys doing it to set it up, and then with those pieces you cut them together to form a narrative. And it's a craft, and like any craft, it can become an art, just like painting or sculpture. I don't think painting and sculpture is an art.
It gobbles up all art. I mean, it encompasses all art.
Well, what I'm talking about, it encompasses all crafts. The bad analogy I always use, because I haven't thought of anything better, is a chair. If you give 5 guys the same materials, hammer, glue, nails, saws, whatever, it's wood, and say, make me a chair. You design it, you make it, you construct it. Well, they'll all make you a chair. And all of those chairs you can sit on. But one of those guys might be Charles Eames, or Chippendale, or some amazing person who comes up with the Eames chair, comes up with something extraordinary. But it works. You can sit on it. So it's the same thing with movies. You learn the basics of coverage. I said this once and got such shit for it, but I believe it. If you can drive a car, you can make a movie. And it's just getting the pieces you need. The skill and the art comes in with the more experience to know what you need. I mean, I worked for a director once.
You really think anyone who drives a car can make a movie? I could not agree
with
less.
A crew. I didn't say a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, they could shoot pieces of film and just
No, I didn't say a good movie.
Yeah.
First of all, it's set up now, and movies are brand new, like 120 years old or something. That's brand new.
People don't realize how hard it is to make a movie.
Well, first of all, people don't realize the physical labor involved in making a movie.
And the time commitment is fucking insane. If you want to make something good, the time commitment is insane. I'm currently making a 15-minute movie. I've been editing it for weeks and weeks.
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
The truth is, people never appreciate work put into stuff.
No.
But you don't appreciate it when you go to... There's certain things you do appreciate work. Like a musician who's buying a guitar can really inspect it and appreciate the work. But some schmuck who goes in to buy his kid a guitar, he says, does it have strings? Can you tune it? Which is cheaper. It's just a fascinating... Here's the other thing about movies that's now with streaming, it's totally insane. But how much does it cost to see a movie now?
Was it $15?
Let's just say it's $15. Sure. Okay. If a movie costs, like Dune, $200 million to make, and Dune's pretty good, and you see a movie that's good, costs you $15. If a movie costs $60,000 to make,
schlock,
and is not good, costs you $15.
Right.
If it's a great work of art, if it's a Buñuel or a Fellini or one of Scorsese's best, you know, I think Marty's made a lot of bad movies, but he sure has made a lot of bad movies. But he's made a lot of great movies.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, it's $15.
Yeah.
So nothing else in our lives do we pay that way. When you buy a pair of shoes, what are the materials? What's the brand? How much did it cost to make? All these things enter into what you end up paying. Not in movies. So, is it good? Is it bad? Doesn't matter. $15.
So you've made a ton of fucking chairs. Some of those chairs were Eames chairs. Some of those chairs were not Eames chairs. What were the ones that were not Eames chairs?
Oh, I don't know.
For you. I'm saying
me,
where you
Blues,
sent it out into
Blues
the world.
Brothers 2000 is a movie I'm extremely proud of the music, because most of it's live, and I tell people, buy the CD just for Dr. John. It's so good.
And I got it for free.
There you go. But that movie came about because Danny is evangelical. He really wanted to make another movie because what happened was he hadn't seen the Blues Brothers in years, and he watched it, and he was like, oh, my God, Aretha's dead. Ray's dead. James is dead. John Lee is dead. Cap is dead. Oh, my God. And he felt this rush of gratitude that he had gotten them. He was able to put them on film like that and expose them to a new audience. He started panicking, and he said to me, we've got to do a sequel. We must put these people on film. And the joke became, who's in the sequel? Everyone that wasn't in the first, you know. B.B. King for years gave me shit. He's someone who actually became a friend, and he gave me shit for years that he wasn't into blues.
Let me talk about B.B. King with you for a sec. So in 1985, very busy year for you. Into the Night, 3 B.B. King videos, My Lucille, Into the Night.
Well, the video, that was to promote Into the Night.
Okay. And then you moved into Spies Like Us. This is all in 85. That's a busy year.
I would move. Listen, I've never had my next picture. I would love, if you're Spielberg or Bob Zemeckis or someone with that kind of power, you can set up your movies and you know what you're doing and set up your pictures. I don't have that opportunity.
That is completely mind-blowing to me because I look at all these movies.
Well, when I was considered hot property because they were hit movies,
right?
You know, hit movie. The reason you want your movie to be successful, there are 3 reasons. First and foremost is that it definitely relates to how many people see it, because you don't make pictures in a vacuum. You want people to see it and be entertained.
I think most importantly, you got to feel good about it.
Well, that's different. I mean, what's interesting...
That's the most important thing to me.
Well, okay. But what's interesting for me is, to feel good about it. None of my movies, I think, are perfect. You know, I see mistakes in all of them. You know, you don't have... Hitchcock said it, and for him it wasn't really true, but it was, movies are constant compromise.
Yeah,
you're exactly always working under a ticking clock.
That's why you got to be in the moment, because these things that you compromise, when you're on the set and you see those happy accidents, when you add those in, it makes up for the compromises.
Sometimes, but it depends on you're a victim of the weather. Of the health of your actors,
potential incompetencies on the crew.
If you're of the crew,
yeah,
of your lead performer, if she's having her period or had a terrible fight with her husband,
I'll edit that part out.
Why?
I'm just kidding.
But it's true. You have to be. You're constantly dealing with. There's a short in the cable. There's the sun's going up. The sun's coming down. The clouds are covering this. The clouds are uncovering this.
Is it
now? It's much easier because of CG and digital. For instance, when we made this is something no one has to worry about anymore. But when we made Three Amigos, we're shooting in the desert in Arizona. You know, just like Spies Like Us, we're shooting in the Sahara Desert. They're in a different desert. And if a plane goes over and leaves the contrail, you're fucked. You had to wait.
Right.
Well, now who cares? You erase it. They would be in the sky, and you're screwed. You can't shoot a Western with contrails in the sky. You had to wait.
Right.
There are all these things you had to do that, because of... Now, for instance, you're shooting here, but there's all this traffic here. Well, it doesn't matter. You just shoot here, and you get rid of the traffic there. It's amazing what you can do
Music
now.
is mostly that now.
Yeah.
It's mostly just fixing it in the computer.
Right. Do you think that the movie that you love watching the most, that's the most pleasant experience for you to rewatch, is Spies Like Us?
No, why?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is Three Amigos? You love Three Amigos.
I enjoy Three Amigos. I think it's very funny. I love the Mexicans. I love Alfonso Arau, Tony Plana, Jorge Rivera. I think those guys are really funny. And it's a funny movie. I actually think that's very funny. I love Elmer's score. I love Randy Newman.
What was it like working with Randy Newman?
He's wonderful. Are you kidding? I'm such a fan.
He's a great songwriter. I mean,
he's also a great composer. He was.
It's hysterical to me that he's doing all these happy-go-lucky Disney movies because he's got a very dark, skewed sensibility.
I have to tell you, if you look at the Pixar movies he's done, they're not all happy-go-lucky at all. In fact, some of the Toy Story stuff is really heavy.
But his scores
are really sophisticated.
Yeah.
No. His scores. Randy is great.
He is great.
His album, he always wanted to do it. They did it once as a on stage, but it wasn't successful. And I want to do a film or a television thing of it, but they keep wanting to. His managers.
Which album?
The one, the one with Linda Ronstadt and James Taylor.
Faust.
Yeah, I think his Faust is great. And also the one, what's the Southern album, the Birmingham.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Good Old Boys.
Good Old Boys.
That is a great
brilliant
album.
I think Randy Newman is brilliant. And in Three Amigos, he's the singing bush.
Right.
It's also cool. When Chevy is playing piano for them to sing this. He wrote the songs. Mm-hmm. And when Chevy's playing piano, those are Randy's hands.
And then we move into Coming to America.
Yeah, that movie was made very quickly, and it turned out well. It's too long, I think, but we didn't have time to even preview it.
So
Nile Rodgers wrote a brilliant score for that.
Also, do you know that he has said that his proudest moment is writing Just Let Yourself Go, sung by Christopher Max. Let's talk about that recording session.
I wasn't there, but Nile called me and said, listen to this. Because he said they did a take where he just said, blow your chords, just blow your vocal. Just go. I don't care if you're working. And he does. And then they just let your... I mean, it's amazing. That's a great... But you know what he did? And I said, no, I'm cutting that out. And Niall was disappointed. But at the end of it, he had the lead singer say, it's sophisticated. And I said, Niall, no. Why, that's funny. To you... But they'll blame me for that game, when I wouldn't let him do it. But if you listen to some of the cues, the cue when the king is in New York coming, just listen to that cue. It's powerful. I mean, he wrote some wonderful orchestral stuff. I mean, great. He's a gifted composer, although he's known mostly for, his rock.
Being a funk musician.
Yeah, but man, he's Juilliard trained. Actually, I love Sister Sledge. That was Niall's group. Chic, yeah, they have some. So I'm not a giant disco fan, but
how did you get back in touch with Michael for Black and White? Was Black or White? Was that Michael getting in touch with you, or how did that happen?
Well, honestly, what happened there was...
All right, that about does it. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to our graphic designer, TODD ZIMMER, my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Joe Kennedy, the mythological mensch himself, John Landis, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the soldiers of sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones, and they're over in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator, and much more. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you regular, as it were. But wait just a minute. This is just the entrance to the deep dive. No need to stop now because we're on a roll. Join us as we descend down, down, down on Discograffiti's week-long Jewish thriller deep dive, wherein we train the microscope down on 3 distinctly different but super genius Jews. Another way to dive even deeper is to get thee directly to the first, second, or third John Landis episodes. That's number 85, 89, and 90, wherein the director talks to Discograffiti about Kentucky Fried Movie, Animal House, the Blues Brothers, and more. And don't forget, there are 2 upcoming episodes of the John Landis tapes, and that's a whole lot of movies to go. If you're a Patreon subscriber, then you already know to keep your ears peeled throughout the week, because this Monday continues the Jewish thriller deep dive theme with our Patreon-only wildcard episode, Ruth Ann Friedman, The Interview, wherein the writer of Summer of Love smash hit, Wendy, dives deeply on her life and times in a really touching interview. Not to mention Wednesday's incredible Patreon-only episode of Discograffiti's The Private Press, Jericho, a conversation with Rob Huxley, part 3 of a special 3-part long-form interview with the great man himself, as he talks about one of the greatest psych LPs to ever emerge from Israel's Holy Land. That's patreon.com/Discograffiti. In addition, I can't recommend enough that you tune into our brother podcast, Vintage Annals Archive. This week, we're highlighting episode 20, Ann Magnuson. If you know, then you know. But if you don't know, Ann is nothing short of a national treasure. She was in the amazing band Bongwater, has made 3 solo albums, and was in the incredible vampire flick The Hunger with David Bowie. Creator and host Rich Wexler went completely overboard on the research end, so his facility in training the microscope down with Ann especially rates this one pretty damn high in my book. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, May 12th, we're coming at you with part 5 of the John Landis tapes, including the making of the Michael Jackson black and white video, plus what happens when you work with Sly Stallone and he tries and fails to be funny, and then you go and work with Eddie Murphy and he tries and fails to be serious. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!